Hello, everyone. Welcome to another LinkedIn Live. So today, as always, we're joined by an incredible HR executive. We've got Judith Jungmann, who's a Chief HR Officer at Beckers. Judith, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm great, Chris. Nice that you're having me on the last day.
Before we jump in, tell everyone a little bit about yourself personally and your journey to where we are today.
With pleasure. I'm a lawyer by education. I have now worked in the people space for over 20 years. I'm still passionate about it. My motto is, and I still have it, I invented it or I defined it some years ago. It's unleashing potential of individuals and organization, and that's what I'm fascinated about. And I had the privilege to only have dream jobs during my career. I started at Siemens as a labor law specialist, but already in the HR department. To be honest, more by chance, not by planning it strategically from the beginning. And then I went to fast-moving consumer goods, to Danone, big food multinational. I went into the digital space in a smaller company, Scout, and now I'm with Beckers, which, solves big problems, I think. You know, the chemists, they now need to solve the problems of the planet. Mm-hmm. And that's why I feel I'm at the right space at the right moment. But that's how I felt all during my career, actually.
One of the reasons that I wanted to have you on the show today is when we first spoke, one of the things that stood out to me is how many change and transformation programs that you'd led. It seems like every single business you go to, you're leading major change, and there's not really a HR leader that I speak to every day that isn't going through some type of change or transformation. So I was just going to ask the question, what are the sort of change or transformation programs that stand out to you the most, that you're proud of, or that challenge you the most, whether you learned the most and grew as a HR leader? I'd love to share that with our audience.
Yeah. Now let's go into some of the examples. I was also reflecting a bit on it, and that's also helpful. So thanks for the opportunity actually to tell it, because I could reflect about it and then kind of post-learn even more stuff. But humankind, we are the animals that are most adaptive to change, actually, right? This is how we survived and really made crazy progress also in the past centuries, actually. So humankind can do change. I also learned from a neuroscientist that actually our brains are really constructed for being adapting to change, right? And at the same time, if you ask people, do you love change? Everybody will say, run as fast as you can, right? So I'm really interested in that. And I think nowadays, for sure, everybody is at least theoretically realizing that we will not stay the same, and we have some dramatic changes that are happening now, but also in the future. For me, this topic is one of the most fascinating topics, for sure. So let me start with one example that is already some years back, but it was really a kind of nice, successful example. And let me just try to give you a bit the context, and then also what I consider maybe could be the factors for a successful change. So multinational has acquired a big business. The business that was acquired had a fantastic change story behind it. 7 years before they were acquired by the multinational, they were almost bankrupt, and they really survived and actually were quite in a good shape. But for sure, they were doing it very short-term driven, right? Both in business and people strategy. And they were mostly on, okay, let's see what is working, what the consumer wants, and let's just give it to them. And they were quite, kind of actionism, more not very strategic, right? Which makes total sense in this situation. So why do I mention this topic? So I was on the buyer side, a big multinational that acquired this business, and we doubled the turnover of this business in the next 4 years or something. And then we are talking about, I don't know, 4 billion euros turnover or something. So really a big chunk. And I think that is a successful change, right? If
Pretty
you are
successful.
taking over, because we all have this M&A stories in our minds, right? Where
they end up in disaster.
Exactly. Where there's big promises, and then especially with this big thing, they end up in disaster, and then they split it again, or that kind of thing. So this was really a success story. When I reflect on it, and when I also reflected on the other examples, I had 4 factors, which sound probably quite simple, but I think simple is probably mostly then the real answers also. It's about leadership. It's about a good mix of talents, some that know the business already, have been there, and then some new guys, because I think change without people change, I think that's a little bit naive, even if that sounds a bit harsh. I think you need a good mix of people. And then some culture, and probably in communicating where you bring some good news to people. And I will elaborate a bit what that meant at that example. And then also needs to create some business success, because I think just change for the sake of change, that also sounds so banal, Chris, but sometimes I'm talking to some business leaders, and I think they are now so focused on the change that they are not really thinking, okay, so but what's the big new game? Yeah? They are more thinking change for change's sake. And that, I think, there I get a bit worried.
Not very inspiring either.
Exactly. And I think also a success factor is that people also within the organization see then, okay, something is moving up. Yeah, we are not just deteriorating, or we are getting a bit out of focus or something. But really, we see also this is making sense. We are also making good money with some new ideas or something. So in this example, leadership, that was the first factor. That was more, and I don't think it's always like this, but there in this example, especially funnily enough, in this big organization, there was one leader that was then taking the presidency for the division. And I think he was very wise in picking the right guys. He really had the principle, I want to have people that are better in some traits than myself. That also sounds, again, so simple. If I reflect on my 20 years of experience, not every leader that I met had the courage to actually be really consequent in this and really take pride in, okay, so I want the best guys or the right guys that are now up for this big challenge, and hopefully they're even better than myself. He trusted them, he gave them autonomy, and he had a great instinct for business. So he was actually the one that really saw the potential in one product line that nobody else, I think, saw so clearly. And he had this really, this kind of stomach for the business, or this intuition, and that was actually working super well. So that was the leader. Then mix of the talents. I was the talent director, so I was really involved in this very deeply, that we really took the time. We did not take external consultants that do this famous management appraisals that also, there's a lot of anxiety, right, in the organization if you do that. And they also don't know your business, right? They have
someone who's studied it. They have their off-the-shelf product that they plug and play. That
Totally.
Doesn't work. And many times the people that come in from these consultants have never actually led a change in a business. Exactly. So I'm really a bit worried from time to time when I hear that. So, and we also did not have this because the multinational was not so used to those big acquisitions. There were some competitors I know
in the fast-moving consumer goods, especially the US American ones, they had then big troops. They did it in a military operation, to take over a business. And actually, we at that time, we did not have any troops. We did not have a lot of experience. So we were going step by step, really thinking, okay, what is the profile of the leaders that we should now give more autonomy, more responsibility, more ownership, because the unit before was very centralized driven. And now we saw there was a good time now to give more power to the countries, to really realize this business potential. Yeah, they were too much executing actually now for the next phase of the business. So we figured out, or he also saw that now in this context we can give them more power. But then for sure you need the right people that actually don't only like the execution job, but also really like to drive business.
How did you identify those people?
That was really interviews and observing them. Yeah. And I also developed a little leadership program where I was a co-trainer as well, together with a professional person. I was also playing with making it fun and having some competitions. Yes, general managers love competitions. So I was giving out some awards for whatever units that were doing a nicer development job for their people. So that was really motivating. Then also the new leaders trying to make it fun and having a clear profile and then interviewing against the profile. You also need to bring in new guys. Yeah, not everybody that was super happy just to execute some orders of the headquarter. Then this is not the right thing. Yeah, but overall it was a nice time because there was some space for promotions and for enlarging the space for the people that actually like to do it. So it was a good news, actually.
So we've spoken a lot about what went well. What didn't go well? So looking back, what didn't go well, and lessons perhaps personally that you learned that you've then changed on new projects that you're working on, or as a business that you think you could have done better?
It was not so much about the change, because I think that went really well. And I think I got more positive learnings out of that you're not coming with a machine, but you're really listening a lot, not just bringing in some stuff, but really try also to merge some ideas. I think that was done really well. What I learned was in this high growth, because I told you we were doubling the sales. Exactly. What I saw, and that is not really connected with a change, but still with change on this high growth scenario. The interesting one was you always do some risk management mapping, right? Especially in the very big companies, that is also a kind of ritual. And I can tell you, I remember it totally now as it were yesterday or something. We had some risks identified. They were very unlikely risks, actually. They were listed. They were like almost black swan type.
Really?
And they realized that some crisis situations, because of the high growth, and this unlikely risk in the map that probably we took seriously, but nobody believed that could really realize. So that was a big learning for me, that within at least a kind of fast change, super successful, there could be also risks of the big growth that you should never underestimate, and really have your action plan, even if you put everything forward and you want this growth and you're totally happy about it. The other thing was, that was also a personal experience. That was my first super diverse team experience. So I left Germany for this job, and we then had this kind of acquisition HR team. And it was literally all nations represented. So colleagues from Asia, Southern Europe, then old in the sense of, so some guys already there, and then some guys from the buyer. And this was so hard in the beginning as a diverse team to work together in quite, a fast pace also, almost checking, every single process also in HR. And it was so energy consuming to work together. I remember we were in Barcelona once for a team meeting. And I was driving home after 2 days of, terrible, long-winded discussions going in circles. And I said, okay, so I'm here in a super mission. This is a fantastic mission that we're working on, like a one-in-a-lifetime mission. We are in a beautiful city. We have a nice also dinner, and Barcelona. You cannot not enjoy yourself in this town and what is happening there. And now I have no romantic ideas about diverse team collaboration anymore. But I know that, and we, at one point in time, we twisted it also, and we were really then turning into a high-performing team. But we needed to really invest a lot of time in getting to know each other. And my learning was really, in a change where you need to go fast, right? You need to be on the same mission. If you avoid really to work on the team, on the softer side, yes, exactly. Really, the real team building, and just spend time working together, getting to know together, celebrating together. The trigger point for this team was a session where we were praising each other. We had a round where we just said openly to each other, just positive feedback, what we appreciate about the other person. And everybody got the full round, and it was almost a tear-jerking moment then. And then you could see, actually, because we had a lot of frustration, built up, but then you could see also, okay, there's actually a lot of stuff that we are can celebrate about every single individual. And this team has so much different strengths that we actually can, do a wonderful job together. It was tough, but it was super. And that was also personal learning now for me, that I also take always, if there's a new team built or something, that we really
start there before focusing on the actual strategy, the change. You can't do that unless your team's aligned. That's a very simple exercise that you mentioned about going around the room and saying what you appreciate about each person. But something so small could have such a massive impact, which it clearly did. Because a lot of times you assume what you think people think about you, as opposed, and most of the time it's not true. As humans, we think the worst as well, but that people don't really appreciate you for what you are good at as well. So it's a great comment.
Yeah, exactly. So that was a very simple but really game changer, actually, funnily enough. Yes.
Yeah. What's the other example you mentioned? Because I know you had a few examples at different projects.
A grown-up company, very profitable, market leader, but almost too long successful.
Got complacent.
A bit of complacency. Also, a long-time owner that was not really inside of the business, right? They were just accompanying bit, and they were actually quite happy. But they were not experts, so they could not really challenge really the leaders. And then a private equity bought the business, and then I think the information changed it was very clear. And then I came in right after that, and that was a fabulous full responsibility for HR. The mission was then a full cultural and organizational transformation. That was the mandate. And that was also really reinventing everything. So looking at the organizational model, really putting, like before, a quite hierarchical structure, and then more cross-functional teams on customer groups that were ultimately then, the plan was that they were actually taking ownership for their own P&Ls, at least internally. And that was a big thing, from really almost micromanaged, very hierarchical, exactly, quite traditional organizational style. And then a new culture also defined, because yes, that's a different way of working. And then also all the HR processes needed to be adapted as well, because my thinking was, and especially also in my first number one role in HR, what I was sometimes frustrated in my former jobs, all the efforts in the people base were sometimes not really consistent. And this was driving me mad. And probably also in big multinationals, it's a tendency that you see, okay, there's the new fashion. So we need to actually take this in, because we cannot also not do whatever new work, employee experience or whatever, what is the new big trend. And sometimes without really thinking, how does it build now in our culture? What is the consistency of what we are trying to convey to the organization? What is actually our cultural traits or values that we want to really follow through? What is the behavior that we want to honor? And that was driving me mad. So that was really some big focus for me, that we really try to be very consistent in all the things that we are doing, especially in this big transformation, coming back again to change and transformation. I think if we confuse people with not consistent messages, that is very dangerous, right? Yeah. So that is what I really, from the beginning, tried to achieve, that we are quite consistent in everything that we are doing.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, going back, did you say this was your first leadership role?
Yeah, so that was my first, where I was fully responsible for HR.
When you were offered the role, knowing that you're going to be going into the hot seat during this transformation, was that one of the reasons why you said yes? Because it was a
absolutely challenge? Yes, absolutely. I know that I had 2 offers at that time on the table, really literally in the same week.
Yeah,
and one was more like same than before.
Yeah.
And then this a bit wild ride. Exactly. And I said, okay, let's go for the more risky thing, because I will learn much more there.
I love that. The reason I ask that is that, it's a common theme that I'm hearing on the show when I speak to successful HR executives, is they always take that challenging role. It's not something I come across in other industries or functions that I speak to, but the HR executives, they always seem to, the most successful ones, they're always putting themselves in that position, because that's, as you said, that's where the most growth happens, both for you and the organization, right? Is putting yourself in that position. So
exactly.
I highly recommend that to any of the HR executives listening that are more junior. Take those risks, because at the very least you're going to learn something. back to the obviously this initiative. Where did you start? So you've just joined the business. The acquisitions happened.
Yeah.
What does the first 6 months look like? How do you approach this?
I think there is really to understand, okay, where is the organization? And I had there was this big, fabulous, well-known consultancy that was doing a lot of surveys, organizational health check, I think they called it. And I looked at it because they said, okay, we now do it regularly and we have great data. And I looked at it and they did it, I think, on a quarterly basis with pulse checks. So big one. That was a fantastic one. This was right before the selling, I think. And then some continuous pulse checks with a very low participation rate. And I looked at the material and I also talked to the consultants that conducted the survey. And I said, to be honest, I really worked with those, but I cannot read anything out of it. And when I see the participation, and I can just ask you the question, what did you do with this insights? And it came out that they were just observing it, never doing anything with it, and never coming back to the organization. Okay, so we saw this, so now we're doing this. I said, okay, I'm immediately going to stop this. because this is tiring for people and they don't see something is coming out of that.
Yeah, that's so dangerous as well, to ask for people's feedback and do nothing about it. You're better off not doing it at all.
Yeah,
like you said. Yeah,
exactly. So I cut it, and I said, let's do something different. And I had this idea: I want to speak to everybody. And then I had some support also internally, and we came up with a format, and I'm still a little bit proud of that. It's a collaboration of some great guys also that helped me. I was pitching then, so as I was going to every department, and I was pitching and introducing myself and told them why I'm here and why I'm very happy to be here. And if they want to talk to me about what's going on. So inviting them, and I was promising to listen, not speak, just to listen. And we will have a lot of workshops. And if they are cool about it, then just sign up. And I did then 20 listening sessions with somebody else moderating it. And I structured it a bit around the big themes of engagement, because I also wanted to structure the conversation. I did not want to have a totally unstructured conversation where everybody is kind of getting very, frustrated and then releases everything that is super frustrating from the canteen to whatever.
Of course.
So we structured it a bit. Then I had, after 20 sessions, I had my people plan for the first year, to be honest, because then
and you traveled around. Was it all different? You traveling around different countries?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. So it was mostly because the company was mostly located in Germany, but I was really in every corner, also in different locations. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And it's not a recipe for every single change situation, but I think context.
So, Judith, I think it is, because if you think you have to get out of your office and go and speak to people one-on-one, and there's no quick fix to this. Again, every single successful change I've heard of, the HR leader has literally never been to their own office. They're out on the road, speaking with his leaders one-on-one, understanding that their concerns, and making sure they can. And there's some people spend a whole year on the road, traveling all over the world, having these conversations before even outlining their strategy. And I think that's it. Otherwise, if you launch, a strategy in the first few months, it will fail very, very quickly. As well. So I do think that's the formula. One of the key successes of the formula. Have those conversations, right?
And I really, you want to also do it not just with your colleagues and with the managers, right? So that was really a bottom up. That was really the invitation to everybody, and exactly not to the leaders, actually. So I think that was a good idea at that time, when I was, also having these challenging conversations with my colleagues. I really had some food. I think we all have our intuition, and if we have experience, then we also, we see a lot, and even if we don't have the immediate data or the facts or something, but it's much nicer to really also then show, I talked to people and this was coming out, and this is some data actually now that I can share, and then we can build something on it. I think that builds also a much higher credibility, but also for yourself, probably. So I use it nowadays. I did a people plan, and then I re-challenged it with the survey scores. I think we don't need to dramatically change it, but now with all the insights, because we really did now a big engagement survey, which was not known to this organization that I'm now in, and now we are refining it. And for example, this leadership development, we now can really be super sharp in what are the real big topics that people are seeing worldwide. And I think that is really, so it's again super simple. And
it's
you
always simple. That's another thing I've learned from doing the show. Some of the most impactful things are the most simple. What were the biggest challenges that you had to face going into this then? Because of course, at the same time, you're building your own credibility as a HR leader, right? People, you need to deliver results at the same time, like we spoke about before. So how did you demonstrate that you're delivering value whilst building this strategy, and how did you communicate that with the leadership team?
That is really with data, I think, on all the streams that we identified that we need to do. I think there were two challenges, not only necessarily for myself. I would more look at the business, but I tried to then play a role. So the first one was really when you change this organizational structure, like dramatically. What my learning also then is really how to make it work. I can tell you this was not my genius, fantastic coaching of the organization. That was really bringing in some people that known this, how to work, how this organizational model really functions, that they could really credibly tell from their own experience, all the guys that were a bit lost, on how to really mitigate that. What we tried then to support again was kind of, okay, so where are we now in the maturity level of the system, and what is the best way to support it now? And then it came with, okay, we need some coaching training for some leaders because they don't have the decision maker role anymore. They have more a coaching role. So then you could define that, but to have the clarity how the system works, we really needed some guys that have worked in the system. The second challenge was, and that was a challenge that I physically could really feel, I can tell you. It was listening to people, but then it was also to speak to people. And really have a regular communication. And I think everybody also tells always that change is also about communication. And I think I really had a lot of room to rehearse it there. So what I really tried to take responsibility then to organize very regularly, I think once per month or once, something like that. We brought all the people together and then just informed what's going on. And my impulse was also to celebrate really, okay, we are moving in the right direction. And also bring in on the stage some guys that, the teams to celebrate those teams, the hero teams. And I can tell you, it was a fantastic learning for me. And I think I profited a lot from that. But in the first meetings, I could physically feel the lack of trust, even towards my own person. Not because, not because I was now, but it's just, I was representing this kind of strange new era that nobody really understands yet what it's about.
Okay.
And if you then are presenting to a big crowd of several hundred people at one side, and you can feel physically that they are very skeptical. Yes. And I never had that.
Before we wrap up, Judith, if there's sort of one parting piece of advice you could give to other leaders out there that are on that change transformation journey in their businesses, what would that be? If you could sort of summarize some of the key lessons learned for yourself, or things that you wish you knew 10 years ago that you know now, what would they be?
Yeah. I think I come back again to these 4 factors. So if you choose this kind of mission, yes, choose a big mission because you will learn a lot, but also look at the leader or the leadership. I'm not saying there's only one leader, but look at the leadership. Do you trust that they also have the good business instinct, that they are really keen on doing it? I think that is one thing. Then we in the people function, yes, we should take care and also educate a bit. There needs to be a good mix of talent. So it needs to be good news for some people that are already there for a long time, and they need to have the chance to also accompany this change. And you need to bring in also new guys. Without some new guys, and then hopefully they also can already impersonate this kind of new way of working, new culture. I think that is a very good mix then. The third factor is cultural, about communication and bring this kind of joy element. Yeah. So what's in it for me? That is always what everybody's asking. I would take that seriously. So give everybody really some good reasons why this is actually interesting for them. Make them curious. And there's a lot of things that you can do. And I also like to do it always with humor. And the last thing would be show also some fast business success. Really challenge also, or be hesitant if you just see the change in the sake of change, because everybody is doing it. Everybody needs to have new offices now in a colorful way or something. No, it's about really getting more innovative, getting faster, creating, decreased of time to market, and ultimately grow new business models. And that's, I think, the 4 factors that I saw. And then be big and bold. I think that's the motto. Yes.
Amazing. Well, look, Judith, thank you so much. You've definitely given us some great actionable advice, and I really appreciate you sharing your personal journey and experience with us. And I know everyone will be a lot better off for it, so I appreciate that. And you're in the middle of another change program right now in your current business. So I look forward to speaking to you in 6 to 8 years time. You can give me an update.
Absolutely.
Exactly. Thank you for everyone listening on LinkedIn. We appreciate you tuning in. If you've not subscribed before, head over to hrdleaders.com/podcast. You can subscribe there on your favorite platform. We're everywhere pretty much. Please take a second to like the LinkedIn Live, comment, share, tag in a colleague that you feel would gain value from this episode. Apart from that, happy holidays to everyone. Enjoy the Christmas break, the holiday break, and we'll see you all in 2020. Judith, thanks again. I look forward to seeing you next year as well. Okay.
Yes, thank you so much. It was really great fun.
Fantastic. See you later. Bye.
Yes, bye-bye. Ciao, ciao. Bye-bye.